Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Schlage 80-103-626. This is a mortise cylinder is what it is, and I have it removed from its packaging. This is what Schlage has in their catalog as small format core cylinder for this specifically. The 8103 is going to be for aluminum storefront applications because it has that Adams Wright MS cam. MS stands for maximum security. It's just a trademark name of Adams Wright. I don't believe it has anything other than it's part of the name. But this 8103 is just simply a mortise cylinder. Small format. So what that means is it's going to be compliant with those systems that are classified as small format core. Small format core is most widely known as BEST or Arrow. Most widely known as BEST. Arrow and Falcon are also small format. Many other manufacturers, certainly including Schlage, produce material compatible with small format. The installed base of small format cores and cylinders and locks that take them is near infinite, so you're going to bump into small format constantly. A lot of small format installed on military bases. The installed base is just so dense and for so many decades, several decades in fact, that it's just incredibly common. So the need for Schlage to produce a genuine mortise cylinder capable to take a small format core is necessary. It's very common in a hardware set that you are going to very typically see the hardware listed separately from the cores, because very commonly the cores themselves and the accompanying keywork is done by a third party, not included in the hardware set, not done by the hardware distributor, someone like us. And that's because the facility works directly with a manufacturer. It could be a large pharmaceutical company, multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical. Their needs for security are real and obvious. They will have a relationship with a specific or through a specific chain so that their key system is maintained properly, and the factory is usually directly involved in that. Where the hardware distributor, we're really not involved in that at all, other than very possibly facilitating communication between people. That's been my experience where I've needed to speak to the factory because I speak the language of the factory, whereas the large pharma point of contact doesn't speak that language, just translating the steps through, but I'm not directly involved, even though I would provide the cylinder housing to be done in that type of system. So this 8103, this one in particular is in a 626 finish. That's satin chrome. You're going to be able to get this from Schlage in all of the common finishes. Okay, this is going to include a compression ring, a spring, and a 7/16 blocking ring. Okay, so in addition to that, let's see. This is also going to include the set screw package for the cylinder for the Adams Wright lock, where you're going to very likely require the use of one of the two of these set screws, because the preparation on the side of the cylinder appears to be far deeper than a standard mortise cylinder. So I'm expecting, and I've never installed this into an Adams Wright, but lock body, but being familiar with it, I can, as you thread in the you put the cylinder in, and then in the edge of the lock face with the armor front or the faceplate removed, you tighten that set screw down. I expect, knowing the length of those, that they're simply too short. That's why that longer one is certainly longer. That it's probably too short to add to firmly secure that cylinder in place. So that not only that, but the size of that groove is wider in addition to being deeper. So that's why those must be included. That would be the only reason I can see. So it will include the cylinder compression ring. That's this item. It also includes what they call a spring. I would call it a wave washer, and I think other people know it is a wave washer as well. You can see why we'd call it that. Well, those two conspire to go together, and that's going to drop down like that. That installation is going to work in lots of applications. However, for aluminum storefront, it's very likely that you're going to need this along with it. Now, the reason, or as an alternate to the compression ring and wave. The reason you need these collars is because interchangeable core material, those cylinders are longer. This will take a 7-pin cylinder. Well, a 7-pin cylinder is far longer than, your typical, what do you need for an aluminum storefront? A 15/16 mortise cylinder? This is far longer than that. This is 1 3/8. That's very typical. Underside of the head to the back of the cam is what we measure on a mortise cylinder. So 1 3/8. That would explain why you're going to need, well, gosh, I believe that I said this is 7/16, and that I had said 15/16. That's typical for an aluminum storefront. So there's where the 7/16 comes into play. So that would work out fine. This is going to also inherently have the 8103 is specifically a part number that means small format interchangeable core for a small format interchangeable core. You can do other mortise cylinders prepped for other cylinder assemblies, Everest and Everest 29. Obviously, Schlage's large format. Conventional, you can also do just a conventional cylinder. But this part number specifically means Adams right cam on the back. Okay. Obviously comes less core. That would be the point of this. We would do a project where we are installing, that wouldn't be the way that would go. We're supplying locks, hardware sets of hardware, and to have it called out that the client requires a mortise cylinder is necessary. They want all of the hardware sourced from a single supplier, but then they will have someone else supply the cores. If you needed the same unit for an Adams Wright 4070 series lock, you would change it to an 8105, and that's just simply going to give you the appropriate cam for that application. Okay. Now, there is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page within the site. And by the way, that cam part number alone is a K510-711. That will give you that cam. That can be changed, obviously. That screw is going to be connected back to the forked driver that's in the back. And your interchangeable core will fit right over that. Other interchangeable core cams are available for this material as well to do a variety of applications. In fact, Schlage has a table in their catalog where you can see a whole variety of different cams used for other manufacturers' equipment. They may not have the right cam for what you're doing, but they sure have a lot of cams, several for other manufacturers' equipment. So be mindful of that. That's pretty easy stuff to get into as well. But obviously, first and foremost, to supply their own locks. So at last, there is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page. And by the way, this is the typical, mortise cylinder thread in diameter, 1 5/32 of an inch. This is a typical thread that will work in mortise cylinders. That thread size has been, I don't know that it's been a standard for several decades, but I could pull out a mortise lock case from the 1930s and that cylinder will go right into it. The cam is not right for it, but that's easily changed. So that's been a standard for a long time. Occasionally I'll get that question, especially from someone overseas, who will say, hey, I'm not sure that this is going to fit in my lock. Well, it may not, but let's look into it. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Schlage products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. And there's also a link there to a document called Key Systems. Key Systems Answer Book is also there. That's a very handy document that you can review. It's still a 100-page document, but it touches directly on Schlage's system of key work. To the degree that they publish the data, there's lots of data that they simply don't publish. Schlage has restricted keyways that have been around for several decades, and they don't show you how the different keyways work in a multiplex type system. So some of the information is there by is intentionally not listed, especially and most certainly keyways of restricted product. You're not going to see what that stuff really looks like in printed form. But the document's handy because you will see the part numbers of the constituent pieces that would go as it pertains to cylinder management, housings, cores, key blanks, parts for doing the locksmithing in that material, even the tooling for doing that. There are some directory trees there with key ways and their multiplex systems can be reviewed. Useful definitions are there as well, something I find interesting. Any questions on the 80-103 and a 626 finish, and obviously they can do it in every finish that a Schlage lock comes in, or any other Schlage product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.